Everyone, welcome back to my channel, Bob's Garage. I got a new project I want to talk to you about. It's something I've been looking to get for a while. A new chipper, new used chipper, new to us chipper. Something we've been needing for some of the branches we have around the property. Oh, and by the way, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. So this is, I believe, around 2000 Bandit Model 65. So that is a 30 horsepower Wisconsin engine. So I bought it. Of course, bought it with it's not in running condition. There was something wrong with the motor. Specifically, the person I bought it from said that the number 4 cylinder, right there, number 4 cylinder, had no compression. So taking a bit of a chance on it. The rest of everything looks fine. Doesn't look like actually much has been serviced. This is used for part-time wood business. So take a look at it. It looks like it's got a bit of wear to it, but generally good condition. I actually started the engine with the 3 cylinders. Wasn't too keen on that, but anyways, the rest of it all ran. No apparent noises. Pumps are all working. Safety valves, the safety bars working. Seems to be okay. So we're going to go and take a look and focus on. There are little things that need to be done. Some little bit of rust repair here and there, a few bent parts, but focus on this motor. So like I said, no compression in one cylinder. And he just basically decided to buy another one. You can see, did a little bit of work with the ignition system, thinking that was the problem. Temporary strapped-in coil, some new wires, new plugs and whatnot, but that's about it. Its fuel pump failed, and instead of getting a new diaphragm kit for it, put in an electric fuel pump. Not so bad. I think I probably wind up just going for the simplicity of the original fuel pump. A diaphragm kit's only a few bucks for that. But it did run pretty good in the 3 cylinders, like I said, so take a closer look at it. And I think we'll go through some of the other checks on this later on. So I said I'll probably make this into a few series for this, starting with the motor, taking a look at the inside of the motor and trying to figure out what the problem is, and we'll see what we find. So here's what I got so far. I rotated the motor over to top dead center for cylinder number 4. So I got to be really careful, obviously, with this. There's a lock, but you have to rotate the wheel, so you have to be really careful of the sharp edges. So I spun it around, and I don't know if you can see in there. Actually, the valves are pretty new. Spun it around, but what I saw was that the intake valve is not moving up and down. So the exhaust is going up and down, but the intake's not moving up and down. So that's kind of interesting. I got a borescope. I'll put the video in here for it if I get a chance to add it. But I took a video of it, and you can see that the valve, the intake valve, so exhaust, intakes, Siamese intake, and then going to the two cylinders over here. So intake valve's not moving. So this Wisconsin engine is like any kind of, it's really cool. I remember this when I was young. Neighbor had one for his arc welder. It's basically like 4 Kohler or Briggs and Stratton engines. So it's like an L head, or what you call a flat head. Valves push from the bottom, and springs come in the cylinders, and the head's got nothing to it, just a complete combustion chamber. So really easy. And so what I know is the valve's not going up and down. That means there's nothing to push on it. What I also see is that it's made contact at one point in time. So that tells me that it's been lifting at one time. So like I was saying, you've got a tappet. You've got on the top of that tappet, and this motor, took a look at Wisconsin, get a little bit more information. This, by the way, is a WH4D. the top of the tappet it's all mechanical. No hydraulics, obviously, with a simple engine. But underneath this inspection plate, the tappet's got a bolt. It's an interference bolt, meaning that it's, or interference thread, meaning that the dimensional difference is what holds the bolt in position. And then you've got your spring on top of the valve and the retainer clip. Well, for it to touch the top of the cylinder head, the cylinder head up here, that likely means the dimensions increase. So how can that happen? Well, maybe the keepers came loose and the spring got loose and it was bouncing. Maybe the little bolt that adjusts the clearance between the valve and the tappet backed off. One of those two things could do it. If that happens, that bolt could have potentially backed out, or if those keepers came loose, the spring could have come loose, and that could have eventually rattled that bolt out. That's not likely, though. The bolt's not supposed to do that. So be looking for, what would cause the valve to lift up. So keep your fingers crossed. This might be somewhat simple. That if it is that little bolt that came loose, then it might just be a matter of putting parts together. If it's the keepers that came out of it, still the same thing, but wondering about that bolt. Why wouldn't the valve still be going up and down? Basically, there's excessive clearance now for it not to go up and down. So that means there's more space between the top of the tappet and the bottom of the valve. So let's open this up and see if we can find out. I'm going to get the fuel pump out of the way, just give myself some more clearance. So I got the cover on, and this is good news. It's what I expected. The downside is it looks like, I'm trying to move this light into a better spot. I'm kind of rushing this again because of trying to get it working for the weekend. Okay, so the look like expected, but you can see it's run for a bit because I don't know if you can see this one over here. The one on the left is nice and shiny. The one on the right has got like a dull silver look to it. So the bolt's missing. When I found this, the tappet was jammed up, so there's no space. If you can see that, all right, the retainer is loose, and back in there, I don't know if it shows up very well, but behind it there is the bolt. So pretty much what we expected. Back in there, in the back of the valley there is the bolt. Pretty much what we expected, but it looks like it's been run this way for a while, so not so good. So I can try to fish these parts out, and I'll bring you back then. Enjoying the view. Okay, so this is what we've got. I've cleaned things up a little bit. The tappet actually looks to be in pretty good shape. Looks like I'm getting some good light there. I'm just gonna stick this, pull it out. Just trying to clean it out a little bit there, but it looks in good shape. I thought that groove at the base, right down at the base, that's not gonna stay, but I thought that groove right there was from where? It's not. All I could find in the back was 3 parts. This is the adjuster nut, which the threads are completely rounded off. This and this are the 2 pieces of the tappet and the spring. This is what it's supposed to look like. So these are all parts. So this is Wisconsin Motors Canada. Got all these parts, Specialized, one of the biggest distributor of Wisconsin parts. Sent me all these parts. That's what that's supposed to look like. So that's that interference thread. So it's pretty hard for that to back out. The keepers are gone. They're probably in the crankcase, and that's the retainer right there. So this, I believe these two pieces are the retainer. So that rattled around. My guess is that the keepers fell out, and this just bounced around, and that probably slowly drove that valve out. Could have been the other way around. Could have been the adjuster nut backed out, and that broke the keeper. Don't know. Anyhow, now I got to try to fit everything all back together. I'm going to probably save these parts. I'm going to keep the retainer, which I need, the keepers, the nut. So all this, replace all these broken parts. I'm going to save the spring, and the reason why I don't really want to, feels okay. Can't see any marks. I don't know how much of that you saw. I was so looking at the parts, but it doesn't look like there's anything there. That wear is likely that there. The retainer, it looks like the softer metal, so that's lucky. And the threads, like I said, there's a bit of a gunk in there, but I'm going to try to put that back together. Hopefully the threads are okay in the tappet, and we might just be in luck. Okay, well, I kind of gave up on what I was trying to do, which was try to pry up the valve and the spring and try to get that nut back in place. That just wasn't working, and there's just not enough clearance. So I had to do something that I probably should have done in the first place. One of those things that you think about the job too hard, you never get it done. What I did is I pulled the head off. I'm going to see if I can get a light. Where did I put that? Here we are. So I pulled the head off, took the valve off. Generally things seem okay. That valve was rattling against the top of the head, of course. Head came off fantastic, no issues. Sorry about the lighting. You can see, where is it? Right there, where the intake valve has been banging against the combustion chamber. Okay, everyone. So it's been about a week. I had to actually step away from this for a while. I was really rushing through this, so the video quality up to now has been pretty bad, I'm sure, because it's just taking little segments. I was trying to get this chipper back together real quick. I had a little piece of steel that I had made up a long time ago, actually when I was really young, for compressing valve springs, and it just wasn't strong enough. It was bending. There's no reinforcement. It was literally just a bar. So anyways, things started to go downhill real quick. I was fighting it. I kept having the... I couldn't get both of the keepers in the retainer. Kept them popping out, put one in and pop down or pop out, and I couldn't hold the retainer square. So I decided enough's enough, I'm just packing it in. And then on top of that, it turns out that the oil return for the place where the tappets, the springs, the retainer, that whole assembly, that whole valve assembly is, that whole pocket has got a drain hole in the back that's perfectly shaped for a keeper to pass through. So I found that out. So anyways, needless to say, things went from bad to worse. So hopefully the lighting doesn't bother you, I stuffed paper towels in here after I learned the keepers will drop down into the crankcase. By the way, I've gotten ahead a little bit. I bought several different valve spring compressing tools. Let me get some of this out of the way. So I bought, this one is made for small engine, Briggs & Stratton's. It's got an official Briggs & Stratton emblem on it, so it's probably pretty good. And I bought this Chinese compressor tool. You got not so good reviews. And then I spent about 30 minutes fixing it. It came with this, it looks like a 1032 screw, which is way smaller than the hole that's in here. So I put a 1/4 inch in. What was happening, this teeny little screw being that much smaller than the hole, this arm was coming way down. It's still down, even with this 1/4 inch, but it was coming way down and it just wouldn't work at all. So I replaced that with a 1/4 inch screw. And then of course, everything went well. I didn't bother filling it because again, I was just trying to make the tool work and I wasn't thinking about it. Oh, that strobing light. Anyhow, so I got it in, just basically 3 minutes, and carefully placed the 2 keepers in place. Everything's fine, so I'm gonna start working on that. But a couple other things I found. So when the keeper went down inside of the motor, I had to drop the pan to fish it out, of course. By the way, I found the remnants of what I think is a keeper. I'll put that a little bit later. I pulled the pan out. Well, when I pulled the drain plug, first came out a liquid. I figured, oh shit, the water in the motor. And then it got milky. But then I could smell really strong gas smell. And there was probably, and again, I wish I would have filled it, but frankly, like I said, I was in a pretty bad mood at this time. So I probably had about a 1/4 inch of sludge inside the crankcase. So I guess it was okay that the keeper fell in, had made me have to take the pan off the bottom of the motor. I'll get some lights and show this later so we can take a look up at the motor and do some other inspections. But like I said, I guess it's a mixed blessing. If I hadn't dropped that keeper, I probably wouldn't have noticed. Again, I was pushing so hard to get this running quickly. I probably wouldn't have noticed. That wouldn't have been too good. The that oil in there, that the oil came out like a milky type consistency, which still worries me. Could have been moisture. This hasn't been used very much, so it's a possibility a bit of moisture got in there. I don't know. I'm going to take a look through the bottom end. I've already checked 2 connecting rods, which are tight. The other 2 at the ends, and I don't know what number that would be. I think it's going to be number 1 and number 4. So that would be, this light's going to be the furthest back and the furthest forward. I can see that there's side clearance on the connecting rod, the big end, but not up and down. But I'll get into that a little bit further. But anyways, so yeah, cleaning things out, got a bit further. Kind of glad, I guess, that I dropped that keeper in there. And, that I got a chance to take a look and just get a feel for it. So next thing to do is going to be to set up the clearance. So I'll show this a little bit later, but you adjust the top bolt relative to the bottom. It's an interference thread. It's actually split, so it sort of applies a bit of pressure. Bit of an interference, and I apologize for the flickering of the camera with the light. I haven't learned yet how to adjust for that. Anyhow, so I have to adjust that screw up relative to the tappet, and I've got to close that clearance up on the intake. It's 8 thousandths of an inch. On the exhaust, obviously because of the heat cycles, is 16 thousandths. I'm beginning to think too, again, depending on the time, I probably need to pull the intake off and check the clearance on all the cylinders. I don't know if I can do it with the intake on. Probably try and see if I can do it, but I probably need to check this. So that needs to be done to be set it back up. And then, I don't know if you noticed that there's a difference between the intake and the exhaust. I don't know enough about these to know if there's different spring rates. I'm gonna, like I said, I also need to check just to make sure this went back together right, because this keeper fell out. Maybe this motor's somebody's been into before. There's enough silicone on this pan gasket that somebody they used that in lieu of a proper gasket. Anyhow, some of the things I may have missed when I was going through this is I took out the fuel pump. I may have said that earlier just to get more clearance. It's non-functional. See if I can move this around a little bit. An electric pump that's wired to the coil has been put in place of the mechanical fuel pump. I don't like that. I'm wondering if that's I'm wondering if that's the cause of the fuel getting into the crankcase. If somebody had a key on trying to diagnose an electrical or misfire, thinking it's a bad point, the key's on, they're probably pumping all kinds of fuel. As you can see, this is when I bought it from the owner. Just one second. I'm trying to readjust the lighting here a little bit. The owner had told me, the previous owner had said that it was missing in one cylinder. So he thought it was electrical, so he's replaced two of the leads. It looks like this bank has got new leads on it. Actually, it looks like there's about 3 of the 4 have been replaced. And he thought it was a coil problem, so they put another temporary coil in place, as you can see. So I got a feeling that in the diagnosis of the perceived ignition problem, key was on for a while, and that probably pumped all kinds of gas into the crankcase. So I'm hoping, because this was the last thing done, I'm hoping that's the reason why I've got a fair bit. Doesn't explain the milkiness. Hopefully it's just not overall neglect. So give everyone a little bit more time's gone by. So I think where I left off the last video, I was going to go check the clearance. So I'll let you know what happened there. But again, same thing. I set up the first one, which was tight. Obviously the intake valve was way off because I hit everything apart and put the new parts back in. Exhaust was 12. So what I decided to do, like I said in the previous clip, is I decided I'm going to go and take a look at another one. So let me show you what I did. Got a different light now. Hopefully this works better. Get this out of the way. So if you can see back there, intake's still on. I got the back cover off, not too bad. And so I've checked the intake. So the intakes are to the center, Siamese on the common intake manifold here, then separate exhaust. Outside of the engine is common exhaust. So I can get my feeler gauge in there. On the intake, as I said, it's supposed to be 8,000s. Well, what it turned out to be was the smallest feeler gauge I had was 5. Now I got another one that goes even smaller, but the smallest I have is 5, and it's less than that. So then I went to the other side, just stuck a 12 in there, and it won't go in. So clearly, as I thought, valve clearance hasn't been checked for a while. Valve clearance actually reduces with time because the valve going up and down, I'll just take it around there. Again, some of this stuff I'm sure everybody knows, but the valve slamming up and down regularly, they basically drive themselves further into the seat. So the clearance gets smaller with time. So I said, okay, well, I'll see if I can make an adjustment. Well, you can see how tight that is. So you're going to likely need stubby wrenches to get in there. So again, decided, okay, time to step back again. So I'm going to do this right. They've all clearly got to be checked. This hasn't been set up in a while. And I'm going to get the intake manifold off. So I'll see if I can get an angle for this. It doesn't show very well. Maybe there it is. So you got a bolt there on either side of the intake, either side, and then O-ring gaskets on either side. Disconnect the throttle choke linkage, air intake, and fuel line. And that's basically it. The whole thing pops off. So, of course, I'm going to run into a bit of a problem. I'm going to see if I can chase these threads a little bit first. I've already soaked them a little bit in penetrating oil. But I'm not going to be fighting trying to get these on and off. I'm going to give myself the room I need to get in there and set it up right. But clearly it needs some attention, has been neglected for a while. So I better go and check them all. And there's no sense farting around. I'm not going to buy some stubby little wrenches to try to work on that. It's a pain in the ass. I don't know if you can see there. My hand doesn't barely even fit in there. So I'm not going to get a wrench. Might be able to take the carburetor out to give a little bit more room, but screw that. Let's just get everything out of the way, work reasonably. Sooner or later, there's another of the bolts there. Sooner or later, I'm going to wind up having to get that intake manifold off for one reason or another. Might as well address it now. And this weather shield just comes off. It's just unboltable or removable, so I can get that out of the way. By the way, for shits and giggles, I'll turn this light off. Here's basically what's the parts I took out. There is the keeper, so it's been banging up and down for a while. The retainer. I think I said in the beginning of this video, I was mixing retainer and keeper for the longest time, again a little bit. Not really thinking about the job. One keeper, couldn't find the other. And what I thought was the keeper is actually the bolt, the adjusting bolt. So that's an interference thread. You can see, I hope you can see, threads are completely gone. And this is completely gone. There would have been two of these pieces. So the sludge, it's basically almost like aluminum paste everywhere, because that's probably what this is. That sludge in the oil pan, that's ground up metal. That's this thing bouncing around. And this bouncing around, it was actually wedged up inside the spring. This was sitting down around the keeper. But yeah, this is supposed to be on the end here. But it broke off, and like I said, I can't even find the other piece of this, can't even find the other half of that. But that's from this thing. Clearly was running a while with just the one cylinder. That tells me some poor practices. So I got to go deeper in this and sort it out. So I moved ahead and cleaned up the motor a little bit, like just a little, just to get access to it. I got the intake manifold off, and here I'll show you. So I got the intake manifold off, cleaned up the valley cover, real easy. I just ran dye down the bolts just to clean them up, penetrating oil, backed it off. I was just in the process of scraping off some of the intake manifold gaskets, cleaned off this valley cover, took all the covers off, rotated the motor. So for me, I'm just, I got to the number one cylinder, watch one through the cycle when you get to the compression stroke, and then just advance the motor quarter turn at a time, go through the firing order, and I checked the clearance in all the valves. So here's what I got. So it's basically in thousandths of an inch. So number one cylinder here, hopefully you can read that. The intake was the one that was all knackered up. I'll let you figure out what F stands for. Exhaust was 12,000. The next one, which I think is the number two cylinder, so 2 or 4-2, was 8,000 intake, which is right, 7,000 the exhaust, so basically 10 thousandths less than it should be. On the number 3 cylinder, it was intake 5, so it should be 8. Exhaust was 8, it should be 16. So the only cylinder that was relatively close was number 1, which was the exhaust was 16 or 12, not 16, but the intake was 14. So I am super happy I did all this. It wasn't much work. Once I got the weather shield off and just simply disconnected the governor linkage, and at this one pin, there's a little push pin on there, and the 4 bolts, and lifted the whole assembly off after the air cleaner, of course, was taken off, but real easy. Glad I did it. Glad I did this. Lots of clearance, makes it real easy to work on. Gonna have to clean up all the intake and exhaust ports and make sure they're sealed up. They're pretty pitted. So this is a gasket that's sort of shaped like this. Intakes, of course, don't corrode. Exhausts do. So I got a feeling that doesn't really matter if I have too much surface around here. It's gonna make up the difference. So it should be all right. No signs of any corrosion there. So get that all back into spec, and I've been cleaning up all the fins. There's dirt daubers all over the place, blowing things out, clean that all down, and I'll set the clearances properly and start putting it back together. Okay, bring you up to speed. Again, I apologize for doing it this way, but I'm presuming that people, some of the little details about some of this work, people already understand and don't need the details. But comment below if you like more information or want me to walk step by step through some of these things. So I've completed the valve adjustment. So again, really straightforward. The head was off, which made it even easier. But all the inspection covers are off. Rotated to top dead center on, what number was that now? I think that was number 2. Just started that way because the head was off, and it's the one I fixed. Started with number 2, top dead center, and you watch the intake valve. So the intake valve is going to go open as the piston goes down for to bring gas and air in, and then it's going to close and the piston's going to go up. So then you're top dead center. So when I'm on top dead center, both tappets or lifters are on the heel of the camshaft, and I make the adjustment. I rotate, 180 degrees. Yeah, 180 degrees. Go to the next one in the firing order. Both sides, another 180 degrees. Do another one. Anyways, you got to go 720 degrees, but basically every 180 degrees, half rotation of the crank, you're at top dead center of the next cylinder. Make the adjustments, and it was pretty straightforward. I think I showed you earlier in the video. I can't remember now. It's been a while. Flats on the tappet, a hex bolt, interference fit, meaning it's tight. No lock nut or anything, which makes this real easy. And you just adjust it up, the nut up or down from the tappet, and that takes up the clearance. 8 on the intake, 16 on the exhaust. So went around twice just to make sure everything's okay. So got that down, covers are on, and now taking care of this. So I got a little worried about this. Then I started thinking it through. This is for the throttle, the governor linkage, throttle linkage. This was worn right down. I don't know if you remember, it was just almost ready to break off. It was so worn. So I was thinking that might be part of the casting, but it didn't make sense because that's not going to last long, but it was eroded. But there's a port on either side, or boss, that's threaded on either side. So this is actually a bolt. Hex on this side, shaft. There's what's left of a circlip or something that goes on there. I built it up with weld. So I wasn't worried. Once I determined that this is really just a bolt that's threaded in here, I was just deciding at one point that I'd try to take this out. I figured, oh shit, I'm just going to break it, the thread. So I'll save that for another day, but I built it back up. With a bit of weld. Then I basically just filed it down round, and now it's on, and it's way better. Could be a bit more. Most of it's on this end now, but it's very snug on that end. So I'm going to put a little bit of, hopefully I got all that in there, wasn't paying attention to the cam screen. So hopefully that's good. I'll put a little bit of high temperature grease on there. I don't know how well that'll last, but I'll try it anyways. Put some high temperature grease on there, or some graphite or something. And now the next step is try to put back together some of these pieces that have fallen apart, like this spring that's laying here. Now this governor spring. The next step I'm going to be doing then is putting the intake manifold back on. Now somewhere, I'll get that later, somewhere in my toolbox I got a little bit of high temperature gasket seal. I gotta find out where I put it, but I'm going to seal up these intake and exhaust manifold gaskets. This one's better to pull up. These are the old ones, but then because they're on your intake, they didn't go through heat cycles, so they're good. I won't reuse them anyways, but I'll save them for spares. But they would go in here, and I got a little bit more material to put over there. Basically, the ring back here that fit inside there to center it, that's basically got stuck behind. So I got to pull some of the pieces of that, but I'm going to seal that because corrosion, this has sort of been lost a little bit, some of this material. So I want to build that up with a little bit of high temperature exhaust sealant. So that's it. I won't show you the details because literally a little lubricant. You can see, we'll find a circlip to go on the end of this shaft, springs back on, sealant on these ports, drop the manifold back on, and then put on the throttle linkage, choke linkage, and the motor's back together. Next will be the oil pan. I'm going to drop some zinc additive for the oil. Not that it needs to be broken in, but might as well put a little bit extra lubricant. Still got to torque down the head a bit and just snug them for now, but there's a specific sequence. You can find it online. Extremely complicated, but I'll get it and go through it. But that's it. There's really not much more. Oh, other than the mechanical pump that was here, got to bolt that in place with the gasket, but really come down to just a couple more steps. So I'll let you know, I'll bring it back when it's back and reassembled. Okay, so I got it back together and actually started it up, but only ran for a couple of minutes. So fuel delivery, this coil, this fuel pump, like I said, that I don't like, was wired to the coil, which I also don't like. So I decided to put the mechanical fuel pump back in service. It was disconnected. It had a few dirt daubers in there, but what I found wasn't pumping. And these are the two check valves for the pump. This one wasn't seen. The little O-ring there was cupped up a little bit. So when I took a look at it, it looks like it's been bent up a little bit loose. But this part of the metal disc here, that's, if you like the valve, was bent down for some reason. And so this rubber disc was sitting up. So I think that's the problem with why this wasn't working. Now it's all flat. I just got in with a pick and slowly pried that up until the shape came back to match the one in there. So the way this works is, this is the inlet, comes there. This is a check valve. The fuel comes through there, pushes up. There's a little spring above there, and there's a diaphragm that pulls down, creates vacuum, so that draws the fuel in. And then same as this one's, reverse goes the other way. So very easy. But obviously, if that's not sitting flat, cannot raise the check valve. So it looks fine. I think I'm just going to put it in the way it is because it's sitting flush. So let's see how that works. Everyone, I finished up a few things, so I just want to go through what's done. I didn't film it all. Kind of simple little things anyways. So first of all, got the, like I showed in the last little segment, I fixed the check valve. Ran the line, couldn't get it to pick up. Ran it for a while, couldn't get it to pick up. So what I did is I hooked this pump back up to feed through the mechanical pump. Just trying to push air through, I feel like. Anyways, that pump doesn't work either. It's supposed to basically cycle back and forth. Something's wrong with it because it clicks but does not cycle. It doesn't do the clickety clack as Morsky says. So what I was doing was just basically I was tapping to power just to cycle it back and forth. Got it through. Anyways, that worked. Cleared it all out. It runs. It siphons fuel from the fuel pump now. Reason I like that, really simple. Like I said, I'm going to get a service kit for it. Diaphragms are all good. It's just that one check valve is bad. If there's a leak in the diaphragm, there's holes all around the bottom, so gas won't go into the engine. These have developed a fair bit of pressure, so they could overpower the float in the fuel bowl. And while I was at it, I took off the race and spiral dual coil option here. Put this one in a little bit larger, so I couldn't get quite the brackets to fit. But basically, checked the oil again. Everything seems to be okay there. I got some repairs to do. The wiring's horrible. Voltmeter or ammeter doesn't work. I don't think the hour meter works. So there's a fair bit of work that needs to be done. But I think that's where I'm going to end this. Probably just finish a little bit of a quick clip with the motor starting here. But I think that's where we'll end it for this video. Again, this was something that somebody had tossed away. The person I bought it from, he picked up another one, same one, but with a diesel engine in it. He just couldn't figure it out. That's why you saw the ignition issues. He knew that there was one dead cylinder, no compression, but he gave up on it. Bought another one and moved on. So I got it a reasonable deal, I think. Didn't take much. Like I said, the actual repair of that, the valve train for the intake wasn't a lot of effort. These Wisconsin motors come apart real nice. Like I said, it's basically a lawnmower engine multiplied by 4. Really nice to work on. So it came apart pretty easy. So I'm going to finish this video off with just it starting so you can listen to it. But that'll be it for now. And I think for the next video, I'm going to clean it up, knock off all the lichen and whatnot from it sitting, check out blades, check out anvils, go through every little piece. There's a few worn things on it that I need to address, some bent metal, some cracked welds. So I'm going to go through all that and just generally tidy it up. Okay, well, thanks for watching. Get your comments, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Thanks.